Morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean. Pugs is actually inside. She's been a naughty girl again, back on the naughty step. I hope you are all happy and healthy doing the things that you love. With those that you love doing them with, please do me a favour, smash the like button for me, smash the subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topic. And look, I'm going to continue with the Arne Slot story. Just want to say a quick thank you to a guy, a Feyenoord fan. I think his YouTube name is Rotten Apple. He dropped into the comments on yesterday's video and said he was devastated by the prospect of Arne Slot leaving Feyenoord, but that he'd do really well for Tottenham in this guy's mind, and that if anyone had any questions about Arne Slot, then to ask them. I asked a couple about the strengths of Slot, what's the relationship with his backroom staff like, what can we expect? And the man came back with like a really good insight, a long insight into the way that Arne Slot builds relationships with players. I'd urge you, if you were interested, to go and check out yesterday's video, look at the pinned comment at the top, and then drop into the replies and you'll see the long response from him. I want to say thank you to him. It was brilliant insight. I'm actually going to try and reach out to him and see if he would like to come on, pending that Arne Slot does become the next manager, and see if you'd like to do a bit of an interview on the channel so we can get to know a bit more about the man. But ultimately what he did say was that Arne Slot is the father-like figure, and he has, for Feyenoord at least, a very settled first 11. He did make rotation with the wingers because the wingers in the team were not that great. But what he did do, he spoke to the rest of the squad and said that whilst you might not be playing as much as you want, you are all equally valuable to the team. You're necessary, and I want you to feel absolutely like part of the story, to the point where the players got behind it so much that when Feyenoord would score a goal, some of these players that weren't playing very many minutes were celebrating as though they were fans of the club, which is, to me, a really good sign of a manager that can invoke team spirit and build a mentality monster that Tottenham sorely need. Something we haven't had and don't have for a long time, maybe since Pochettino. He plays the good cop. His assistant manager, Pusic, plays the bad cop. And if we do get Arne Slot to come across, and we're figuring out that compensation, allegedly as we speak, with Feyenoord, then it's likely that Pusic would come with him. And he's the guy who's the guy who would be, tussling on the touchlines with any trouble that happens during European games, or the guy that's going to corral, the energy on the training ground, be the guy who screams and shouts at the players. So a nice little kind of 1-2 punch from the manager and the assistant manager. Apparently the rest of the backyard team at Feyenoord would probably stay with Feyenoord because they're more Feyenoord through and through. So according to this fan, it's likely that if we do get any of them, it's going to be just Pusic that comes along, which is cool with me, and we'll see where we go. Whilst we're on that note, who else may come from Feyenoord if Slot comes in? Well, all the reports today are suggesting that the captain, fantastic Kökçü, I'm not sure how you pronounce the name, I think it's Kökçü, the number 10, or the guy who wears the number 10 shirt, he doesn't play in the number 10 role. He plays more in the double pivot in like a 4-2-3-1, and for all intents and purposes is a number 8. Now I've pulled out the Y-Scout tool, looked into every department of his game ad nauseum, and there's lots of things that I really like about him. First and foremost, his weight of pass is delectable. He can slice through teams with ground through balls or over the top that have just the absolute most precious amount of weighting on it, that has been responsible for key passes that lead to goals throughout Feyenoord season. He scored, I think, 13 or 14 goals himself and a handful of assists across the Europa League and the Eredivisie and the local cups, the domestic cups this season. He gets back and defends. He's no problem getting back and doing his work defensively, and he can run with the ball and dribble very effectively as well. From what I've seen, it's an odd insight, and I don't know how this is going to sound. I'm going to say it out loud for the first time, but there's lots of highlight reels that you can see where he's running with the ball at somewhat like half pace. He's I wouldn't say he's slow, but he certainly isn't someone that you would think of as a fast dribbler. Nor does he have quick footwork. He doesn't do fast step overs like what you'd expect from tricky players that play in the inside forward role. But yet he does have this ability, despite having this appearance of like almost dribbling and doing step overs in mud, like it's in slow motion, yet he seems to have this ability to always get the ball pulled back and take the step at the right moment to create the opportunity to then release at the right time. So to me, it's a little bit reminiscent of Bentancur in the way that neither of them are particularly quick-footed, but they have a faster speed of thought upstairs that knows when is the right time to drag the ball back, knows when's the right time to take the side step to the left or to the right to create that space to then allow the ball to continue in its progression. And it works, it's effective in the Eredivisie. I'm not entirely sure, if I'm honest, whether or not that step up to a faster league like the Premier League is, and where the quality of the opposition in the midfield is slightly higher, whether or not he will continue to be able to have the success that he has doing the things that he does with the limitations in speed physically that I think, and it appears to me, that he also has. I could be wrong, and I'd love to know if any of you who are watching this, watch the Eredivisie, watch Feyenoord. Maybe let me know if I'm well off course here. But that's the impression that I got. Very effective and successful at what he does, and maybe it's the speed of thought that allows him to get away with things, because I don't think his step overs and the speed of his feet necessarily would naturally allow him to be as successful as he has absent that speed of thought. Like I say, a little bit like Bentancur. And that comparison to Bentancur leads me into my next point, which is, I've been speaking a lot on this channel over the last 3 or 4 months about this need for me to have more specialists in the team that play specific roles. All of the teams above us have a monster number 6. Who is our Rodri? Who is our Casemiro? Or our Thomas Partey, even though Thomas Partey is more of a number 8, but who can play that role when he's really at the races. I don't think Tottenham have it. I think Tottenham have got 4 or 5 different versions of a number 8: Hojbjerg, Bentancur, Bissouma, Skip, and Sarr. I think we're all trying to figure out exactly what their roles are for whatever formation. And none of them are masters of one. They're all kind of jacks of all of the different trades that midfielders can use. And it appears to me like Kökçü is something similar. A very capable football player, very, very good. Not only is he good at all the things I've already mentioned, but he's also fantastic with long-range efforts. He can shoot from distance. He has, a good XA, a good XG. He's good with free kicks as well. And he's obviously a leader, right? He's the captain of a team that have outperformed this season and have beaten their 2 rivals, and they're absolutely smashing it. So, certainly a player that if Arne Slot wants and sees value in bringing in, I'm happy to get on board it. I just wonder whether or not he's that different to some of the players we already have. He might be better levels, or better at some things, but again, for me, I feel like Tottenham need a specific specialist who can be that locksmith, who can unlock passes and play in the 10, like a Maddison or whoever it might be, that creative player. I think we also need a monster number 6 who can sit in front of the back 4, whoever we're going to sign to sit on the left-hand side of Romero in a back 4, whether it's Laporte or Endika or any of the other plethora of names that we've gone through. If you're going to have Udogie and Pedro Porro as your fullbacks, or at least one of them playing, and doing that system that we saw with Bayern Munich, that kind of 3-1-5-1, where one of the fullbacks plays almost as a winger, then you're going to need to have a monster number 6 to sit in and protect the 2 centre-backs and the other fullback who stays behind. And I don't think that Kökçü would be the right guy to play that role specifically. I don't think Ollie Skip can do it. I don't think we've seen it enough from Pape Sarr to think that he's got the stones for it. Bentancur, we don't even know what version of him is going to come back from a debilitating injury that cruciate ligament surgery is and requires. And Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg again is a player who has a massive engine and should take all the plaudits for staying fit when everyone around him has fallen apart all season. But again, I don't necessarily think he is of the level, nor is he a specialist that can sit in that role and we can rely on and be reassured that if the ball gets passed in, the players aren't. I've said it before, I want to see someone like a Ugarte, someone like a Polinia to come in and play that role. And if we can go and get that role sorted out, then we're going to need to make room in the squad. If Arne Slot wants to bring in this guy Kökçü, then for me, it will mean that one of the other midfielders that we have in that kind of 8 hybrid role has to leave. And I think that Ollie Skip is a homegrown player, and I think that the club would probably want to keep him. Maybe, despite the fact that a lot of Tottenham fans say send him out on loan or he's not good enough, sell him anyway, I think that there's probably a little bit more to it in the sentimentality side. Not that I agree with that will see him remain. Pape Sarr, maybe he'll get loaned out. But for him to have room to be loaned out, we obviously need to tear up some contracts or sell some of the players that are currently on loan. That's for another conversation. Basuma, we haven't seen the best of him, but we know what sort of player he can be. So I'd hope that he'll be part of the squad next season. So for me, if someone has to be moved on in order to make room for another player that plays similarly as does Kökçü, then Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg is the guy that should probably have to fall on his sword. And don't forget, there was a lot of teams, a lot of big name teams around Europe that think very highly of Hojbjerg. And as recently as January and last summer, there were suspected bids coming in, or that were maybe being thought about being made, of 35-40 million quid. Now, if Kökçü's value, according to Transfer Market, is about 30 million quid himself, then maybe there's a chance that Feyenoord could do a straight swap, 1-for-1, or maybe we can move him on somewhere else to make room for Arne Slot's captain. I'm not entirely sure. Personally, like I say, if Slot wants him, then I want him. If Slot comes in, I'm presuming. However, I still feel like he's not that different to everything we already have, and he's an improvement on what we have, but he's not that different. And to me, I want to see us get some specialist roles in that can be a master of one. A monster number 6 for me is more important than another Jack. Let me know your thoughts, and let me know if you think I'm misreading him and you think he's better than I'm giving him credit for. Then where does he fit in? Who has to make room? And does that limit what we can do elsewhere? Bearing in mind that we obviously need to get rid of a lot of defenders this summer and try and bring 2 of those in, a new goalkeeper, a new wing forward to replace either Danjuma and or Lucas Moura. There's a lot of changes that are going to have to happen, and the one thing I didn't think we needed was another number 8. And but if Arne Slot wants Kökçü, then we've got to make this guy feel at home and bring in what he thinks is necessary to give us and give him the rolling start that we all want to see. Good player, very interesting player. I'm not for any second here knocking him. I liked what I saw in the highlight reel. I just wonder whether or not he is going to A, take the step up to a tougher league, and B, whether or not his particular skill set is more necessary than some of the other holes that we need to plug. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always,